Coming up in this edition of Cogeco News, a chat on this day with the medical officer of health about issues like this and others involving COVID-19, remembering Natalie Dow, and the Entertainment Insider returns with some Canadian fare. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to this Monday edition of Cogeco News. I am Greg Estabrooks. On the weekend, Premier Doug Ford announced that he wants every Ontarian, symptomatic or asymptomatic, to get a COVID-19 test as soon as possible. Our Clark Heipel asked for a reaction from the local medical officer of health, Dr. Jim Chirico, on Monday.
In a telephone conversation with Dr. Jim Chirico of the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit, the medical officer of health says testing is not the be-all and end-all in the fight against the coronavirus.
You have to remember, too, that testing is a snapshot in time. So you could be negative today and positive in a few days, as you could be incubating the virus. So people who are symptomatic and all of those people with at least one symptom of COVID-19, even just mild symptoms, can be tested. As well, if you don't have symptoms, but you think you could have been exposed to COVID-19, then you can go for testing.
What level of testing in terms of numbers could be facilitated in the North Bay Parry Sound District with all the testing clinics put together?
Well, it really depends on, how many people do show up. So there are 4 assessment and testing centers within our district. So they have a number of tests that can be performed. And you can either go to one of the assessment and testing centers and or call the health unit ahead of time so we can arrange to make an appointment. And if you decide that you're going to do a walk-in, then it's probably a good idea to call ahead to see if there is a wait to do that. Many of the assessment and testing centers are open 7 days a week.
And Doctor, lastly, people in Northern Ontario, for the most part, have been working really hard, and people have made incredible sacrifices to stop the spread. And then on Twitter, we see photos of Trinity Bellwoods Park in Toronto. Thousands of people, it appears, just gathered without any PPE. What is your reaction, having been immersed in this for the past several months?
It really is disappointing, and we've got to be so careful that we don't repeat that up here. Because so many people were gathering, we know that there's community spread. They've just significantly increased the likelihood that they could become ill with COVID-19 and spread it to others. And because the incubation period is about 14 days, anywhere in between, we will, it really increases the risk that you're going to get more cases. And that's what we really need to try to avoid up here. And we really hope that, I know people have sacrificed, but you can still go out and do what you need to do that's important for you, for your mental health and for your physical health. However, you still need to physical distance. You can't be doing what they did in Toronto.
Much more with the medical officer of health on Tuesday's edition of Cogeco News. Let's send it back to Greg at the news desk.
Which we'll be sending you right now to the North Bay Parry Sound District COVID-19 by the numbers board for this Monday. 26 cases in all as of this day, almost 6,000 tested. 20 of the 26 have been resolved. One sad fatality. One person is hospitalized and 4 currently are in self-isolation, but still just 26 tests so far, that is, out of almost 6,000 tested in the coverage area. NDP leader Andrea Horwath has been staying, fairly quiet during the pandemic. Of course, not much going on at Queen's Park, like next to nothing. It certainly wouldn't be a time, though, to play politics. The opposition leader, though, did have some mild criticism of the way the governing Tories have acted during COVID-19 and their response. Horvath was in conversation with our James Bowler from our Muskoka affiliate.
We'll get to a point at some time in the future where we're going to take that hard look and put a scorecard together of where the government did well and where they didn't do so well. At this point in time, what we're still trying to do is identify the gaps and try to encourage the government to take on some things that still need to be addressed. We know that there's been some problems with testing. We know there's been problems with access to PPE. I don't even want to talk. Well, of course I do want to talk about it, but the horrifying situation in long-term care. All of these things are going to be dealt with and reviewed. I mean, at the early days, Mr. Ford tackled this with a lot of passion. I fear that, I'm disappointed, I guess I should say, that sometimes that passion hasn't translated into the kind of action that should have occurred. So we're just going to keep trying to do our best as an opposition party to stay on the track of making recommendations and suggestions to try to get the government focused on helping people.
Andrea, I think one of the things that I've struggled with, and I know a lot of reporters too, is the mixed messaging from Doug Ford in terms of what people need to be doing. We are living in cottage country, and I'm sure you're aware of the issues that we've had up here. And a lot of the time, Premier Ford was pushing for people to stay home, not come up. And then that message sort of changed. And then it was a bit of back and forth of, saying don't travel unless essential, but now golf courses are open. So I just want to get your opinion on how that was handled.
Well, I mean, I think you've raised a really important issue. The communications has been probably one of the big problems that this government has had. I mean, we haven't had clear communications. We haven't had decisive direction. There's been a lot of waffling. There's been a lot of back and forth. Even when the very week that this thing all started to come to roost in Ontario, one day the Premier's telling people, don't worry about it, go and enjoy your March break. And then literally within the next day or two, everything shut down. And the advice was exactly the opposite. And so that in itself created confusion, and people ended up going away on vacation. And we saw some of the tragedies that occurred on those cruise ships. And so from day one, really, there has been a real challenge. The government has not been able to communicate clearly, directly, succinctly, or in a way that wasn't confusing people. And I think that's dangerous at a time like this.
Spring is a time where wildlife comes out to play, and that can pose extreme danger for motorists, especially in Northern Ontario. Speeding at night is one way to drastically increase that danger if it's not already dangerous enough on the road for you and other drivers. Here's Clark Heipel for the latest on-road safety this spring.
They're ginormous.
That is Shona Cameron of the Northeast Region OPP. She's talking about moose. However, it's not just moose that pose a danger to motorists.
We really, really need to be careful when we're out on our highways. They dart across the highway. We've had several deer on 63. We're heading to calls over the last couple weeks that we've had close calls with, and I'm not driving too fast, and I've got the extra lights on my cruiser to watch them. So that's something else some people could do if they do a lot of night driving, is they could put an extra set of lights on the vehicle. You just have to make sure to turn them off if you're passing other vehicles.
One tip that I have that you may be able to agree with or not, if you see one animal, there's likely more. So if you have a close call with one animal, say, okay, I can speed now. That's not the case, because there could be another family waiting down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And there could be two together too, right? You see one deer dart across, there's likely a second. I've heard stories of like a dozen deer darting across the highway. I investigated a tractor-trailer collision last summer where the driver said, he said there was 12 deer. He said, I hit the last one. He was almost scot-free. And then you hit something, you hit in another area, and what are you supposed to do? Like, now you're far from home, you're a couple hundred kilometers from home, you're in the middle of nowhere, there's no rental cars, especially at night. So people really need to be vigilant when they're out there on the highways.
What is the protocol? Say, unfortunately, somebody hits an animal, it's injured or dead. What should people do at that point if they themselves are okay?
Yeah, absolutely. If you hit an animal, you need to stop. We've had several incidents where people keep going after hitting a tractor trailer hits a deer and or a moose, and they keep going, and then someone else comes behind them and hits it. If you can pull that deer off the road, then please do it. You're probably not going to be in a position to pull a moose off the road, but putting your hazard lights on and making people aware, even if it's on the highway, sitting behind it a little bit on the highways so that people will slow down.
There is also a legal obligation for drivers to ensure that the scene of an animal vehicle collision is clear. This can be done through the efforts of the driver or by calling for assistance.
Because if somebody hits that moose, you're liable. We would look for that vehicle that hit the moose down the road. That's the good thing about the OPP is our detachments are everywhere, on every major highway. So we have a pretty good idea of where people are going, and we can find them.
What's the first call people make? Is it the MNR? Is it OPP? Is it 911?
If you hit a moose, definitely call 911, call the non-emergency number, depending if it is an emergency or not. But we'll send somebody out there for sure. But number one priority is getting that animal off the road.
And as a driver, your number one priority is driving according to the conditions and staying alert at all times. Reporting for Cogeco News, I'm Clark Heupel.
Late last week, Natalie Dow lost her life or almost lifelong battle with cystic fibrosis. The Bonfield resident was just 25 years old. She was a fighter, to be sure, and she'll be mourned by family and her many, many friends. We spoke to one of her pals on Monday. Like many in the media, I had the pleasure of interviewing Natalie Dow in her long fight against cystic fibrosis. Sadly, her battle ended late last week as she died at the age of 25. This after a lung transplant just over a year ago didn't take. On this day, one of the many mourning is Nick Laporte. The North Bay sprinter became friends with Natalie a few years ago and helped in many different fundraising campaigns.
A few years ago, Natalie reached out to me. She was about to do a spaghetti dinner fundraiser for her cystic fibrosis, and one thing led to another, and myself and the mayor, Al McDonald, showed up to just kind of support her and meet her, and it turned into this kind of great friendship that we've had over the last 3 years, and yeah, we've kept in touch.
Laporte and many other friends held many different fundraisers for Natalie Dow, including Laporte bringing up sprinting legend Ben Johnson.
It started off with a few paint fundraisers that we did just to generate some income, because obviously it's quite a big thing that she's got to come up with financially to go through all this. So yeah, we started off like that, and then Ben was nice enough to come up here for a few strength and conditioning camps that we donated the money towards Natalie. So yeah, like I said, it just developed into this great friendship that we had, and yeah, truly gonna miss her.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time on Monday, as it almost always is, for another installment of the Entertainment Insider with Adam Patrick Conton. This Monday, Mr. Conton takes a look at some Canadian content in the new release, Blood Quantum, which features an Aboriginal cast.
Hey everybody, it's Patrick Conta, the Entertainment Insider, here with my review of a new release, Blood Quantum. Now the title may seem a little unappealing for anybody who isn't a fan of the horror genre or of the zombie subgenre, but let me tell you that there is more to this movie than meets the eye. It has certainly got a lot going on other than the typical zombie tropes, although there are a lot of that as well. This tells the story of a particular First Nations group in 1981 Canada, right before a zombie outbreak has taken place. We then follow the story of our 3 or 4 main characters as they try to cope with the world around them, which is now in a state of disarray thanks to the outbreak. The twist here, or at least the part that makes this a little bit different than a lot of other zombie films, is the fact that any member of this Red Crow tribe is immune to the zombie virus, which is a really interesting take on the genre, something that I haven't seen in a long time. What makes this film really neat and what really makes it stand out is the fact that it's written and directed by a member of First Nations Canada, and of course, all of the primary players here are all First Nations as well. So it's really interesting to see a zombie film from this perspective. There's of course a lot of allegory. I don't think that you can really set up a film in which the protagonists are First Nations and having their kind of world around them being infested by folks of non-First Nations descent without really understanding and being hit on the head with an allegory here, a message. There's even a very blatant scene that kind of demonstrates, oh yes, this is absolutely what they're trying to say with this here. But aside from those allegories and all of the deeper than surface layer meanings from this film, this is just a really great zombie movie. I am a huge proponent of practical effects. There are a ton of them in this film, and they're all really, really good. Now, sure, of course, you can watch them and say, oh, I know how they did that trick, or, oh, great, yeah, I can see where this is going. But the truth of the matter is, you enjoy watching them because they're so well done. And this is a film that only had a budget of $5.5 million. It was very, very small budget, but they managed to do some really fantastic practical effects, some gore effects. It is definitely not light on the gore. So that is one thing you should probably be aware of. This is a very mature film. There's a lot of coarse language and a lot of violence, obviously. That being said, I would absolutely recommend that people check this movie out for a couple of the reasons I have mentioned already. The fact that it's such a fresh perspective that we haven't seen before. The fact that it does take the zombie genre and manage to make it both full of all the tropes we love, while at the same time eliciting a deeper meaning to it. Plus, there's some really fantastic shots here. You can see right there, there's some mixes of animation in there as well. It's a really great film to look at, whether that's because you like the beautiful scenery or you're a big fan of gore, like I am with a good horror movie.
All right, thank you, sir. North Bay will soon be home to a new FM radio station. It's true. Vista will be the proud operator of 90.5 FM, a new classic hit station. A new tower will be erected for the signal, which will stand just under 150 meters. That's a tall one. Call letters very familiar. CFCH, which of course has many historical roots. The old call letters for the great CFCH radio station for so many years. CFCH 600. All right, when we come back, Mr. Heupel has the weather forecast.
Weather is brought to you by Canadore College. Great things happen here.
Monday, fun day, put on a pot of coffee and mind the construction. Welcome back to Cogeco News. I'm Clark Heupel here alongside Lakeshore Drive between Marshall Park and Banner. I'm here for your 5-day weather forecast brought to you by Canadore College. Also could be viewed as your 5-day construction forecast. Now, this recently paved strip of Lakeshore Drive on the lakeside has been ripped up. Now, my first thought was, why are they ripping up brand new concrete? It was just repaved just a couple years ago, but the answer is they are replacing a water main that's 400 meters in length during this stretch of Lakeshore Drive, and traffic is reduced to one lane in each direction on the east side of Lakeshore. So do mind the construction workers, slow down, and you've seen those bumper stickers. Give construction workers a break for safety's sake. Now, I did mention the weather. It is going to be extremely hot. An extreme heat warning could be issued overnight because tomorrow we're going to have sunny skies with a high of 30, and factor in the humidex, we could be closer to 40. So last week I referred to North Bay as Key West. Now I'm going to refer to it as Phoenix North. Let's take a look at the 5-day forecast brought to you by Canadore College. All right, a little bit of construction noise in the background, but this is an on-location weather forecast. We're just going to have to deal with the noise. Overnight this Monday night, chance of a thunderstorm, low 17, and of course, precipitation could occur. Tuesday, chance of a thunderstorm, 26th of May will feature a high of 30 degrees. Humidex 36, UV index 8. You should wear SPF of at least 200. Overnight, Tuesday night, a low of 17, clear skies. On Wednesday, the 27th of May, 30 again with sun and a low of 17. Looking at the latter half of the work week, 25 and 15 on Thursday, chance of showers. And Friday, the sun's out at once again, 23 and 6 for the high and low. Turning the page back to the almanac, Sunday we had a high of 22 and a low of 14. The normals are 20 and 8. Well, there you have it. There is your 5-day weather picture. Do stay tuned. Greg Estabrooks, who lost the first match of tennis against me, will have your 5-day weather forecast right after this. Stay tuned. Greg Estabrooks, who lost the first match of tennis against me, will have your 5-day weather forecast right after this.
Sports is brought to you by Tag Construction for all your construction needs.
Welcome back, everybody. The battalion obviously can't hand out their awards and couldn't hand out their awards at the end of this COVID truncated season, but they can announce them nevertheless. Luke Moncada took home a pair of honors. He was the player of the year for the team, outstanding player, won the voting for the Don Hadley Memorial Award as a fan's favorite player. No surprise there. He had a wonderful season. and let's hope he can play the full, and everybody can play the full season next year. Joe Verbeek was top rookie, and Simon Rowe is scoring maybe the goal of the year here. A highlight for him, game winner against Mississauga. He was named top defenseman. Shane Bolitka was top overage player. He came over from Sudbury. Yes, there was let me make this crystal clear, huge upset in tennis on the weekend. Clark Heupel edged me after I fell oh so gracefully in the first moments of our match at the Granite Club. It was great to be out in the hot sun. It was hot. Yes, I lost in a tiebreaker, but that's fine. We'll be back, and I'll be back. All right, our salute for our frontline workers on this day, the X-ray technicians. We need you all. Thanks for doing your job. That's our salute from York TV, and that's our newscast for York TV for this Monday. Mr. Heupel in the big chair on Tuesday. Good night. We'll see you soon.